All right. Welcome to this episode of Life on the Streets. It's the greatest show on earth. I'm your host, Rick,
I'm Tom.
and today we got an interesting show for you. So we're going to be talking about
Mindset.
mindset. So we'll see what Tom has in store for us here. But first, it's time for tomfoolery.
Oh, geez.
Okay. So I got to ask you a question.
Okay, what you got?
If people heard that you were arrested, what crime do you think everybody would think you committed?
Oh, ooh, I don't know. That's
I
a
do,
pickle.
but I'm not going
You
to,
do, huh?
yeah, but it's probably not appropriate.
Oh, I could write it down and see if it's the same thing because I don't necessarily want to say what I
Well,
would.
I think you should say it.
I don't know. It'd be something like drunk and nude in public.
That was exactly where I was going. It's exactly where I was going. I can see it.
Yeah, but I don't know. I would only do that in a country where I wouldn't get arrested for it.
Well, I'm just saying, what would
You know,
people think you got arrested
it'd
for?
probably be something
And that
like
would be
that.
something like that, Captain Woohoo.
Yeah, I would definitely be something like that
All right, well,
for sure.
goes to tell you, it just shows you now that we're spot on because
Yeah,
you knew it too,
yeah, yeah,
which is
yeah.
really actually kind of sad for you.
It is kind of sad, actually.
All right, well, all
So,
right.
so my friends think of me.
Well, it's not what they think of you. It's what they pretty much expect of you, which is worse.
Mm, all right.
All right. Well,
Okay.
so today we're going to talk about mindset. And Tom, you offer a course on that involves mindset,
I do.
right?
I do.
And what's this course?
It's high risk patrol decision making and mindset.
All right, and that's
So
offered through ADB training,
it is
correct?
offered through ADB. So we're going to just kind of key in on the mindset aspect of it today, which is just one of the modules involved in the class. So,
Perfect. All right. So let's get this thing going. So when we're talking mindset, explain what we're talking about here.
so in my opinion, what mindset is it's a disciplined, deliberate mental framework that enables an officer to respond effectively to an uncertain, dynamic, and high risk environment. Um, so it's really something that um, it's not about the tactical skills that an officer has.
Okay.
It's about how they think, how they anticipate, and how they make decisions under pressure. Um,
Okay. So let's
so,
let's let's just say so when you say how they think, right? Let's kind of go back for those people who don't actually know what we're talking about here. Okay.
okay.
So when we say how they think, when we what are we saying when we mean that? I mean, are we talking about are they going into fear? Is this a fight or flight, or is this a strategic thinking, or is this a knowledge base?
I would say that it's a strategic thinking, and some of it is knowledge based,
Okay.
because a lot of the knowledge of this comes from training, and the strategic thinking comes from training as well.
Okay.
A lot of times it's just not inherent.
All right.
I mean, you have to learn how to do those things, but it really is a blend of situational awareness,
Right.
risk assessment,
Right.
emotional control,
Right.
and a commitment to the mission and safety.
There you go. I like that. So,
So,
so when we talk about that, so when I say when I think about what we say when we say think, I think confidence, right?
mhm.
So when officers are in a situation and if they don't possess that confidence, that mental confidence, that they have the skills, knowledge, and ability, right?
Right.
So that's going to alter how they're going to handle any given situation
Oh, absolutely.
at, compared to if they have, absolute confidence, right?
Right.
Now that there is such thing though as overconfidence, right?
Yes,
So,
absolutely there is.
so what would you say to officers when we're talking about confidence or overconfidence or lack of confidence?
So I think that the aspect of confidence comes with a knowledge of your competence as well.
Right. Okay, good. Yeah.
It's kind of a self-realization of what you can do and what you can't do, and having the knowledge to do that. If you get into, the guys that have a high level of confidence, a true high level of confidence, are very competent in their skill sets. And it doesn't really matter whether that's a tactical skill set. It can be, you have a skill set in de-escalation, or you have a skill set investigations or whatever it is, you have,
Strong communication.
right. Yeah, you have that confidence level in it because you're confident in those areas and you know that you're confident in those areas. And you've trained for it. You've mastered the basics in it,
Okay.
right?
So so where do we, if I were to ask you, okay, where do we fall into the trap of overconfidence? What would you say to that?
I think overconfidence is you fall in that trap when when you have a lack of self-awareness and a lack, and a lack of the ability to kind of self-analyze
Okay.
and on what your skills are and how well they and how well you can translate those skills into something that occurs on the street. You could go to trainings all you want.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean that you're necessarily good at applying them. You can go to and take tactics for instance, tactical classes and stuff like that.
We've been
You,
to many of those.
huh?
We've been to many of
Yes,
those.
we have. We have been to many of those. And that's why I use them as an example, is
Right.
because you can go to XYZ tactical class, right? But if you don't come back and utilize it and train it, then you have no skill set in it. You know what I mean? Like just because you go and learn something, if you don't use it, it's going to fall by the wayside, you know? Um, and I think that's another area that leads to that overconfidence is because, hey, I went to XYZ training. I'm kind of the shit now,
Yeah.
but you never use that tactic or you never use those tactics that you learned or you never train them.
Right.
Um,
And nobody gets proficient in a 1, 2, 3, 5 day tactical class.
right,
Nobody gets proficient.
right.
I mean, it's a perishable skill.
It is.
So we got to utilize it. But
Right.
I like one of the things that you hit on was that self-awareness and self-assessment stuff.
Mhm.
So that really equates back to a sense of emotional intelligence.
Mhm.
Because now, if we think about emotional intelligence, there's basically four prongs of emotional intelligence, and the first two, which are the most important, are self-awareness, right,
Mhm.
and self regulation. So when we're talking about how that applies to emotional intelligence, if my ego doesn't allow me to understand that I may not be as good as I think I am,
Right.
right, or I may not be as proficient as I should be,
Mhm.
um, that I may be writing a check that my butt can't cash,
Sure.
right?
Absolutely.
Uh, then
Absolutely.
I lack the emotional intelligence to actually have a proper mindset. So
Right.
that mindset comes from mastering those things because my mindset is I'm going to win, but what does win look like, right?
Mhm.
Win isn't always going hands on and being the one who wins the fight. Win may be, live to fight another day.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It
So,
absolutely is.
right,
And it's also one of those, I think it's one of those things, although that kind of translates into leadership a little bit,
sure.
right? Because it doesn't, and I'm not talking like, if you're a sergeant or a commander or a lieutenant or whatever, just the informal leader in any department. Um, it's one of those things that if you don't know something, there's probably somebody that does, and you probably need to utilize that person. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I mean, there were certain things I realized that I wasn't the best at, but I had guys around me that were really good at it. Uh, and they could take up that slack, because it ultimately becomes a team effort all the way
Right.
around.
Right.
And so that's kind of one of the things is like when you're talking about, the self-realization, the self-regulation, and the self-awareness is knowing what you know and knowing what you don't know,
And that can be hard.
it
And that
absolutely
can be
can.
hard, especially if you don't check your ego at the door.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the thing, because I can tell you, like yourself, throughout my career, there was so much I didn't know, and a lot of good, mentors and coaches, in my career that I look up to, trainers, people who helped me along,
Mhm.
right? Um, but you have to have that mindset that's how you improve. You got to be willing to throw yourself on the sword and say, hey, I don't know this,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, you
And
for
that's
sure.
good leadership too,
Yeah,
is,
it
hey, I
absolutely,
don't know this.
it absolutely is.
But where I also go with the mindset portion is and you and I have trained this a long time. We talk about this is that mindset is, you know, I don't give up, right?
Right.
So I may do a tactical retreat, live to fight another day, do
Mhm.
whatever I got to do. But you know, when my life's on the line or your life is on the line and I'm with you, I don't stop. I mean, I'm coming out of this,
Mhm.
good, bad, or ugly, right?
Right. Yeah.
We're getting out of this. So that's also a mindset that people have to adapt is I'm going to survive, right?
Right.
I'm going to put not so I'm going to push through the adversity and the barriers that I run into, you know, and when if I don't have the skills to handle this, then I'm going to plan my strategic retreat,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, and that's honestly where, in my opinion, that's where the risk assessment portion comes in,
Right.
is because, I mean, you can, you know, you can have something that you're looking at and going, okay, we absolutely have to take this dude down, and get this going. But do you have the situation contained? And is what you're planning to do the best tactic to do that, to make that happen? Whether it's to make the arrest happen or, whatever it is, you have to take that risk, that look at the risk and say, okay, if we do this, there's a potential that we could lose an officer or two. Now, can you take the time, especially if you can contain the situation, you have the time to stop, take a step back, and look at everything overall and say, okay, we can do it. We can do this tactic and utilize these tools and resources. It's going to be much more effective and a lot less riskier to
Right.
do
Now,
that.
I like that. And, you know, that's sort of taking the controlled approach, you
Right.
know, and then, you know, having that mindset to slow the situation down,
Mhm.
you know, formulate a plan, even though we both know no plan survives first
Right.
contact, but that's okay, right?
Right.
Because then you got to learn to pivot,
Right. You got to learn
right?
to pivot and come up with a new plan
Right.
off the
So,
cuff.
but you're learning to do that, control the situation
Mhm.
through time control, right?
Right.
Slowing things down. But there are times that come up when you don't have that opportunity. I mean,
No.
exigencies kick off. I mean,
Right.
and it just goes at
Total
head
flippant
spinning
situation.
speed, right?
Right.
And that's a different mindset than what we were just talking about.
Yeah, it is. And to me, that's one of the things that I really enjoyed about, and it sounds really horrible, but that's one of the things I enjoyed about law enforcement at times, especially when you're getting into those critical, fluid situations and whatnot, and there's lots of chaos and that type of thing. That I always felt like that's kind of the spot I need to be in. And sometimes shit went bad, sometimes it went good, but I always felt like that made me calmer um and maybe think better
I would
in those
agree.
in
I
those
felt the same
situations.
way. For some reason, I thrive in chaos.
Right.
You know, it allows me, it actually calms me down
Mhm.
only because I I'm in a sense of control in chaos. I start to take control, and that's what we do is we bring calm to
It's okay.
chaos,
Right.
and that I like that, you know, and that's how we operate. And but that mindset is that the chaos isn't going to overwhelm me, right?
Right.
I'm going to control that chaos around me is
Yeah.
to the best of my abilities, right?
Right.
But that my mindset is I'm in control. I'm going to do this,
Mhm.
right? And I don't need to be excited. Here's the thing too, that mindset is understanding that, you know, if especially if you're in a leadership role, but even if you're not in a leadership role, so let's say you're in an informal leadership role, and that doesn't have to be that you're always in an informal leadership role. Let's just say that you're on a call with another officer, right?
Mhm.
And you know, you've got some expertise or you've got some seniority, or you're both don't have it, but you take control. You're now becoming an informal leader. And what you don't want to do is lose control and then because unless somebody else is going to be able to have that mindset to step up and bring calm to the
Mhm.
chaos, take control of that,
Mhm.
you're doomed because now it's going to create
Yeah.
panic for everybody,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
And
Absolutely it
then
is.
mistakes are made, people get hurt.
Mhm. And that's where you'll lose your ability to reason and think, is when that panic kicks in. And I mean, when early on, I would say early on in my career, one of, because just like any rookie, right? And everybody out there can attest to this when you're a rookie is like you're going to every call, hair on fire.
Oh yeah. Oh
Like you
yeah.
get out of the car, you're running into the house or you're running to wherever things are happening. And I remember working with a guy when I first got on the street at FTO. And I was still doing the whole rookie hair on fire, drive fast, ooh, everywhere we go. And he's like, dude, you need to slow down. You need to calm down. And I'm like, but we gotta do this stuff. He's like, you're right. But if you don't have the ability to think when you get there, then just stay away because you're not going to do anybody any good. And I said, okay. And he goes, have you ever watched a lot of times paramedics and firefighters? And for whatever reason, I think these guys learn this and they don't teach it to cops for some freaking reason or another. But he's like, have you ever watched paramedics and firefighters when they come on scene? And I'm like, well, yeah. And he's like, does it ever look like they're in a hurry to do anything? And I'm like, no, not really. They're pretty calm when they get their gear and they head into the paramedics head into the house to treat somebody or whatever. They're fairly calm for the most part. It
Well,
varies especially the more experienced guys.
well, and the difference is they're not
Yeah.
just being lazy. They're not just going in a snail's
No,
pace.
no.
They're acting. They're moving, and they're
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
with a deliberate intent.
Yeah. And
Deliberate.
they're breathing right and they're calming themselves down. They're calming their heart rates down. They're doing all that stuff because they know once they get in there, then they're walking into the chaos and they have to take care of the situation and they have to be calm doing it, so that they make good decisions on treating a patient or putting out a fire
Right.
or extricating somebody from a car or
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. But as cops, I don't know that we actually learn that until you get a little bit more into your career and you start talking to guys and older guys that are like, hey, you got to learn how to breathe, man.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times in training did we tell people like we'd have to tell people because they get so excited and we'd have to remind them to actually breathe
Right.
because they wouldn't breathe
Or
and,
slow
and
down their breathing.
or slow down their breathing because you could see it like you could
Right.
see them start to change color and
Yeah.
stuff and you're like hey it's kind of like you want to walk up to them like like when a young baby's like just crying and crying and crying and crying. And they get to that point where they're not
Yeah.
doing that thing and you got to blow in their face or hit them in the back or something to get them to breathe again. I feel like there's been times when we've seen that,
They're
mostly in training, a couple times on the street,
Yeah.
but
Well, but that's the whole thing, though, is when you start to learn, and um, I've had a lot of really good mentors. So have you, right?
mhm.
And
Yeah, absolutely.
and not just in law enforcement, outside of law
Oh
enforcement,
yeah.
a lot of friends of ours who are in the military, that
Mhm.
type of stuff. I mean, but one of the things that they talk about, you know, that we've taught with our students here is acting with a deliberate purpose,
Right.
deliberately, moving deliberately,
Mhm.
acting deliberately, right?
Right.
But you have a purpose that you're doing it. If we're acting for no purpose, we're just creating chaos.
Yeah, we're adding to it. We're just
Yeah, we're not
adding to
accomplishing
the problem.
anything. So, in order to act with purpose, we have to sort of slow the situation down and think,
Mhm.
right? Have that mindset to where we can actually receive information. Because here's the thing, if you're not receiving information in your head, you're not understanding what's going on, you're not understanding the situation, what good are you doing, right?
Right. Not a whole lot.
Right.
Not a
So,
whole lot.
in order to understand, you got to calm down, understand what's happening.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you gotta take a step back, and kind of, and sometimes that's a physical step back, not just just a mindset step back,
Right.
but take a physical step back and observe what's going on to see a different viewpoint or an alternative tactic or whatever the case may be in order to take care of the situation.
Right.
It's one of the things that Jocko Willink talks about in a couple of his books. And get that higher, kind of a little bit higher altitude observation of things
Right.
that everybody's not seeing.
Well,
You
and
know.
there's that mindset of um how do I do this better, right?
Mhm.
Or am I seeing the full picture? Am I understanding the situation? Am I communicating that situation to
Right.
the people I need it to go to? And are they communicating that to me?
Right.
And if we're all running with our hair on fire, nobody recognizes the gaps,
Right.
right?
And generally there's no communication
Right. So,
when you're doing that.
so I think mindset is also though, mindset is not so simple that people sit there and say, well, mindset is having this, as we're finding out here as we're talking.
Right.
There's so many levels of mindset,
There
right?
absolutely is. There
Um,
absolutely is.
that other mindset is how, before I get on a call, that mindset is how do I build a better me, right? A better
Mhm.
officer, a better operator,
Mhm.
a better dad, better mom, right?
Mhm.
All this stuff. So that's that mindset, that we're always seeking improvement, right?
Right.
We're always willing to, identify the shortfalls, the deficiencies, the gaps,
Right.
and let's figure out how to plug those, right? How
Mhm.
to fix those. And so that's that mindset, is always being willing to do that.
Right. And that's one of the big things with, especially with, I mean, because we did it a lot on SWAT, we
Mm.
did debriefs, hot washes, AARs, whatever you want to call them, after every mission.
Right.
Um, you know, but the problem is that very rarely is that done on patrol.
That's true.
Very, if you have a critical incident, and we've been on many that we never actually had a debrief about.
Well,
We
and
never conducted a debrief about it, and there were mistakes that were made. And the unfortunate thing is if you don't do that, then those mistakes are just bound to be repeated because nobody's identifying them. Nobody's speaking them out loud and saying, "Hey, we messed this up. We need to make sure we don't do that shit again."
well, that's a mindset
Yeah.
also because, you know, as we both know, any hot wash debrief, you know, after action, whatever you want to call it, right? Um, it's one of those things that you got to have thick skin,
Right.
and that mindset is
Absolutely.
this is not an insult. It's not a slam.
No.
It's not, degrading. This is how we improve, and this is
Mhm.
what I need to do to improve. And I want you to point out what I did that
Right.
was, a problem or problematic, or maybe you didn't understand, and I can explain it to you
Right.
why I did, so that you learn too. It's not always about me learning, it's about us learning,
Right.
right?
And that's the thing is like, if you're not doing those types of things, and like I said, I think the biggest downfall to that is on patrol. And that's where patrol guys got to get better at either telling their command staff, "Hey, we need to have a debrief on this." And I get it a lot of time, a lot of times, well, we can't do that. It was an officer involved shooting, and we got to wait till, everybody's cleared and blah, blah, blah before we can actually do the debrief. But that could be
Months.
months later,
Exactly.
right? And in between those, then what? You have two more OISs, and you never debriefed the first one, and you made the same mistakes on the second one, and now you're like, dude, we're just repeating the mistakes that we've done in the past. But I personally think that, hey, it doesn't have to be an official thing.
Right,
If
exactly.
it's your patrol team and your entire patrol team was on it, and you guys could sit down the next day in briefing and say, hey, let's talk about this. Let's
Right.
talk about these mistakes that happened. You
Right.
don't have to
Even
talk
if it's
about
not
any.
your entire patrol team, let's just say that it's a part of your team, right?
Right.
Or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Doing that informal debrief, right?
Mhm.
That sort of hot wash. And you know that what they'll say is they don't really want you talking if there's an investigation going on,
Right.
both criminal and administrative. And I understand that, right? Get that fully. But you can talk about things that aren't related to that specific action. You
Right.
can talk about the overall scene, right?
Right.
The overall response, the overall lack of responsibility or responsibility, right?
Right.
That everybody had, right?
Yeah.
What you did, what you didn't do, what would we have done differently? That type of stuff, without getting into the details of the internal and criminal investigations.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
I mean, but you got to be creative in that. And,
Mhm.
and that takes leadership. That takes leadership
You do have to
from,
be creative.
and it doesn't have to be a sergeant. It doesn't have to be command. It can be, you know, an informal leader on your
Mhm.
patrol team. Anybody who's willing to step up and say, hey, we need to do this,
Yeah.
right? And that's what we're encouraging officers to do is to think outside the box
And
and to really push to improve and
Mhm.
push to improve all of us, not just myself, not just you. I'm never going to come to you and say, well, I'm going to improve
Right.
you.
No.
You know,
No,
because if I'm doing that, then there's a problem with me too.
right. Yeah, because you're not that good.
Well,
But
that's true. I mean, I know that's how I got promoted, is surrounding
but and
myself with people
yeah,
who could help me get promoted.
but the other thing is like it doesn't have to be done. I mean, because we talked about critical incidents and
Right.
specifically like an OIS. It doesn't even have to be that. It could be a traffic stop. It could be a high risk traffic stop. It could be a building search on an alarm
Right. Where
uh,
nobody was found.
where
But what
nobody
did
was found.
what happened in there that we
Yeah.
didn't like?
Yeah. And I used to love doing that on patrol because we would do that and go to an alarm. We clear the place. And then afterwards, I'd talk to the guys and be like, hey, look, we got nothing pending right now. Let's go clear it again while we're waiting on the RP to get there to lock the place up. Let's go clear it again. Or when I was canine, I'd take one of the officers and be like, all right, who wants to play decoy? And then, we'd put a cop in there and then, search it with the dog and run through how to search the building with the dog, with the guys and stuff like that, which was, got a little bit of training in for the dog, got a little bit of training in for the patrol guys on how to function and move around the dog and what happens, when the dog apprehends somebody and that kind of stuff. So there's always that aspect of being able to debrief something and then maybe try and get in a little bit of training depending on how busy you are on that specific call. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's generally not that big of a deal.
Well, and then, along those same lines is I also think that mindset, and you correct me if I'm wrong, okay? But I also believe that mindset is also one of these things that you've got to have that when it's time for business, you're taking care of business,
Hmm.
right? That's that mindset. I'm taking care of business and I'm going to be successful. I'm going to complete this mission. I'm going to survive this mission, whatever that mindset needs to be for whatever it is that you do, right?
Right. Yeah.
In the
It's a
environment that you're operating. But there's also that mindset that when you're not in those situations, there's got to be a mindset of taking a step back and letting yourself decompress, right? There's that
right.
mindset that if you're always on alert, okay, that's a bad mindset
Yeah.
because you're going to burn out. So you got to learn to have that mindset that you need to decompress.
Hmm.
Humor's great, socialization. Officers are great at humor. It's dark humor, but it's
Oh
it's
yeah.
it's
It's
great,
definitely dark humor.
but it allows you to kind of decompress some things, right? So we need to get a mindset that we're not always in fight mode. We're not
Right.
always in a combat mode. We're not always in the aggressor mode,
Right.
right? Take a step back. Be be a friend, be a partner, be a family member, whatever it is that you're not doing.
Right. But that, and that's the thing that also leads to issues with just in dealing with the community and
Right.
dealing with citizens because
Absolutely.
you're always that, on that switched on level when somebody just wants to say hi to you and thanks
Oh,
or whatever the case is, and then you come off as like an asshole or whatever. And that's one of the things that like, contributes to
the
the
perceptions of
perceptions
yeah.
of law enforcement, like there's nothing wrong with just saying hi to people.
Well, the thing that drove me
Hey, how's it
crazy,
going?
and I would see this with younger officers, and that would come through that we would train, right?
Hmm.
And then you end up on something with them, right? And what's the thing that always drove me crazy is you get that supportive citizen, and it's oftentimes a lot of them are military, old, retired vets, right?
Yeah.
Stuff,
Some
but you get that citizen who comes up and wants to shake your hand, or a
right.
current military vet, right?
Right.
Comes up or wants to shake your hand, and these officers who say, "I don't shake hands."
Hmm.
Right? Drove me nuts,
Yeah.
and they try to use this officer safety perspective of, I don't give them my hand because then I'm locked up and I can't do this. Read the room, right? Know your audience.
Right.
I
Exactly.
mean, come on.
Exactly. Know your audience. And quite honestly, then you don't have enough confidence in your skill set in defensive tactics or CQB to be able to deal with that situation.
Well, and
You know,
aside from that, it's still a tactic. I'm engaging the community,
Mhm.
but I'm engaging them in the appropriate way instead of the inappropriate way.
Right.
I'm shaking their hand, and you know what? They're showing you the utmost respect. Why would you disrespect them? That's a mindset too.
it is. And it's,
There's that contempt of community. There's that fear of the community,
Mhm.
right? There's that uncertainty of yourself,
Oh yeah.
of your capabilities. There's that us versus them, mentality. So all these mindsets, we got to recognize them, and we got to embrace the ones that are good mindsets and get away from this garbage that is such it's just a cancer to law enforcement.
No, it totally is. And I think, I think overall, man, like I've had multiple times that I had met somebody in the community, and generally I used to stop, because in our city there was a lot of old guys that had like old muscle cars
Oh
and
yeah, yeah,
really nice motorcycles and stuff like that.
yeah.
I'd see them washing their stuff. I'd stop the car, get out, and say, "Hey man, that's a really nice car." And we would chat about it or chat about their bike or whatever. And I've had people that have come back when I got complained on for something. Like if I got complained on for a use of force and arrest or something like that, there was a couple times where somebody I actually stopped to talk to
Witnessed it.
witnessed it and came forward and said, "Yeah, that's not at all what happened.
Right.
This is what happened." And not only that, I recorded it on my phone.
Right.
So here you
Exactly.
go.
So you're building these relationships, right? You're building advocates that you may never use, you may never need,
Right.
but when you do, they're
They're
there.
there for you.
But but it also does something else. It makes you a better cop. There was an article in Police One, okay,
Okay.
that Alexis Dutton wrote, right?
Mhm.
Where empathy,
Mhm.
okay, that's another mindset. Empathy is a tactic, right?
Yeah.
So is kindness,
Yeah. Absolutely.
so is respect.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, when officers start to understand mindset in its full form, right? The totality of it, it's not just we get into these narrow, go to some of these schools, you get into this narrow thinking of mindset is I'm going to do this, I'm going to survive, I'm going home at night. Love that at its place,
Yeah.
right? Time
Right.
and
There's
place
time and
in
place
the
for it.
right situation. But
Exactly.
let's think outside the box here a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Let's look at all these other mindsets that are just as important because that kindness mindset, that respect mindset, that empathetic mindset may keep you from having to have a survival mindset.
Mhm.
Because it
Yeah.
all plays together. Those may keep you from having to have that mindset in that particular situation that you didn't need to have, right?
Right.
So
And
sometimes we create our own monsters.
right. Exactly. And that's part of it too, is like you have to train, and you have to be good at your skill sets. You got to be good at those critical skills and stuff, right? And but at the same time, you also have to train to talk to people. And you have
Yeah.
to have the ability to talk to people, because the reality is if you get into a fight, arresting somebody or whatever, somebody's probably getting hurt. And it doesn't always mean it's the bad guy, right? Somebody's getting injured, and it may just be the cop. You might make the arrest, you might get the dude arrested, but now you've got a blown out knee, or you get stabbed, or whatever the case may be. Bad guy still gets arrested, but now you're injured. Sometimes that is going to happen. It's the way it is. Bad guy's going to be like, all right, if I'm going to jail, we're going. It's time. Like you're going to have to physically take me to jail. Okay. But if you work on that tactic of being able to talk to people and having the mindset that it's okay to talk to people, you might be able to talk them into handcuffs. And
Absolutely.
and
Well,
and and that's not a wimpy thing or a pussy thing to do.
it's not,
It's a good tactic.
it's a
It's
great
a
tactic.
it's
Let
a
me give you
good
two
tactic
examples. They
because
were just recent that I don't know how old they are, but they're new to me.
okay.
Okay, they're just a couple of things that I saw recently. Okay, so one of them occurs in Las Vegas, right? And there's this Las Vegas officer. He's trying to make an arrest. He's got two suspects, right? He's trying to make an arrest, and they're attacking him. Okay, and he stays in the fight. I mean, he's got that mental mindset. He just doesn't quit, right? So he's got a great, mindset, survival combat mindset going on, right? And he's got confidence in his competency,
Mhm.
and he's really going at it with these guys, and they're fighting. Well, what the problem is when he's fighting with one, the other one is going on him, so he's having to switch back and forth, right?
Mhm.
Well, then what ends up happening is this one car pulls up, a citizen jumps out, runs over, and separates and gets in the middle. Another citizen runs over and starts separating. One of the suspects goes to run. The officer moves around in a very calm, not panicked, right? Still on his feet, moves around and tasers this guy to keep him from getting away, right? Getting him handcuffed while the citizens are dealing with this other guy. But this officer is calm and he's actually thanking these citizens. He's talking to them. He's doing this. He's now taking a mindset. He's acting calm in the chaos. He immediately went from fighting to calm and taking control, right? So that's one example, right? Then there was another example that I just saw, and it came out of Florida. Okay, and I don't know where it was in Florida, right? Well, where this deputy um, contacts somebody on the street, and the person on the street, not being um, antagonistic or anything, just happens to make the question, I don't understand what I did. Can you tell me why you're stopping me? I don't have to, you need to stand there. And he just starts going off on this guy, right? And I'm telling you to stand right there. And he's going, what did I do? Just tell me what I did. Okay, if you don't listen to me, I'm going to take you, I'm going to put the handcuffs on you. And the guy's going, what are you going to arrest me for? What did I do? I mean, they're doing this. And this guy doesn't know how to talk to anybody, right?
No.
Well, then what ends up happening
Fight.
is there's a crowd gathering now. And then the crowd starts screaming at the officer, right? And it was like, you created this whole situation.
Yeah.
And what was really funny about it is I don't even want to call him a suspect. I'm going to call him a subject. The person he contacted on the street never got amped up. Constantly just came, just tell me, just explain this, just explain. Wasn't getting all amped up. The cop was like up here while the subject stayed down here. And we always talk about, if you talk lower, bring the subject down to your level. Well, what was interesting is this cop's mindset, his mindset was so antagonistic, may have been fearful, may have been, disrespectful, may have been like he has issues. I don't know what it was, right? But he was so amped up that this guy staying calm never brought him down. It wasn't until another officer shows up and does the tap out, right, that things calmed down. And then once they calm down and the officer actually talks, the other deputy talks to this deputy and, was getting the what would you? So then the new deputy walks over and tells the guy, hey, I don't even remember what the situation was, but he was telling him this. And the subject on the sidewalk goes, oh, okay. And he gives him his ID, does all this stuff, right? And it ends up, there's no charges, there's nothing.
Right.
They go on their way. This could have been really ugly.
Oh yeah, it could have been extremely ugly. I mean, and that's the thing, right? Like, I mean, think about it, because I mean, I've seen stuff like that, and I'm sure
we've all seen stuff.
Everybody's seen those things on YouTube or whatever other platform on social media or whatever. You see those things, you're like, Jesus, what the hell's going on here? Like, I think about that, like if I'm walking down the street somewhere and some cop comes up to me like that, we're probably going to have an issue. Like, I mean, because if he walks up to me like that and I've done nothing wrong, and I want to know why, I'm gonna want to know why he's contacting me, especially being a retired cop. Why are you contacting me? And if he blows up like that, I'm like, all right.
Well, exactly.
This is gonna go a couple different ways, and both of them are going to be bad for you.
Well, and so here's the thing, though. But when you look at the second officer or deputy, don't want to.
It comes up on comm.
The second deputy pulls up, and there's the crowd. Now the crowd is getting riled up. They're screaming at the first. I mean, nobody's attacking him. There's no physical, but it's starting to amp up there. But this second deputy who pulls up, he sees this, he hears this, right? But his mindset was taking control, staying calm, in the chaos and controlling the chaos. And that's exactly what he does. He didn't throw tactics to the wind. He just used them for he acted with a purpose. Everything he did was with a purpose. It was deliberate. Where the first deputy had no purpose. He had everything he was doing may have been deliberate, but it was deliberate without a purpose.
And it was deliberately wrong.
Well, okay.
I mean, listen, I mean, honestly, I mean, you get those type of guys, and they're the ones that create the issues for the majority of us, right? And that's a problem. And that's another actual mindset that you have to keep in mind. It's like, if my partner's a dumbass and he can't talk to people and he treats people like shit and whatnot, dude, I get it, but somebody needs to say something about that.
Well, absolutely. It's an officer safety issue for not
For
just that
everybody
officer,
else.
but for everybody else,
Yeah,
right?
because
Because I have to go in and drag your dumb ass out of
right,
this. And
right.
that's the issue. That's the mindset that officers need to also instill in themselves is that, just because you're a senior officer or you're my friend or whatever,
Mhm.
if you're pulling this crap, you're putting me at risk.
Right.
And that mindset of I'm going to go home applies there too.
It absolutely
And
does.
it's not the suspect, it's you,
It
right?
absolutely does. I know, because I know there's guys out there that are thinking like, yeah, I got a guy like that on my team. Yeah, for sure. That dude just is an asshole to everybody or
Right.
whatever. Well, he's going to frickin' create problems for you. And that's the way it's going to go is he's going to be the one that escalates something to a point where somebody's going to get hurt that probably has no need to get hurt.
Right.
And so
So
you gotta pull those people aside and be like, you need to figure out your issues here. Like I'm gonna give you the opportunity to square yourself away. And if you don't, then you're a danger to the rest of us.
right. So there's that mindset again of taking charge, right? Being a leader. So if we had something to say to the people who are watching this, what I would say is this, okay? That mindset is everything, right? Adopt a good leadership mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Adopt a good tactical mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Adopt a good community relations mindset,
Mm-hmm.
right? Adopt a self-improvement mindset
Mm-hmm.
and adopt an overall improvement mindset.
Right. Yeah. And it ultimately that to me, that encompasses an overall improvement of your tactical mindset,
Absolutely.
because it's all tactics, right?
It's all tactics.
How you talk to people, how you clear a room, how you make a traffic stop, whatever the case may be.
How you carry yourself.
How you carry yourself. It's all a tactic. It's all a tactic, right? I mean, if you walk around like this all day, dude, you're just you're asking for it. If you're that dude that stands up straight or that gal that stands up straight, carries himself with confidence, then people are more apt to go, oh, yeah, you want us to do what? Yeah, can you please do this move over here for me? And blah, blah. Absolutely, you betcha, because obviously you know what you're talking about.
And that's the thing is most officers, their mindset of what they perceive to be command presence is I yell at you, I
Right.
stand up tall and I chicken chest, my wife calls it that.
Mhm.
They chicken chest, right? And they're yelling at you. And they think there's a mindset that instills confidence in the community, right? People
Right.
they're dealing
They
with,
do.
that they perceive you as knowing what you're doing.
Right.
What they perceive is that you don't know what you're doing and you're in way over your head,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you're showing fear and panic,
Oh yeah.
right? Or there's that contempt of cop mentality,
Mhm.
right? So it's all tactics, as you put it. So I would encourage officers to be mindful, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just be mindful. Think about these things. You want to be a good cop. You want to have a long career. You want to have less stress in
Mhm.
your life. You want to be proud of the things that you do, and change your mindset.
Yeah,
Make
for
sure
sure.
your mindset is a positive mindset.
For sure.
Whether that's a positive mindset dealing with the community, tactics, strategies,
Mhm.
during conflict, use of force, whatever. That mindset needs to be a positive mindset.
Mhm.
Positive intent, positive intent, positive intent.
Yep, absolutely.
Right.
And I mean, it's you have to really kind of focus on that and focus on the positivity of things and not the negativity of things. I mean, regardless of what happens. I mean, how many times have you been in a fight with somebody, with a suspect or whatever the case is, you get them in the car, take them down to the PD, and now you're having a great conversation with them.
Right.
I mean,
It's
yeah, right. It is what it is, right?
It is
Like,
what it is.
you
In the
know, I
moment,
mean,
it is what
it's
it is at that point.
at that in the moment, right? Like
Right.
that dude's gonna be like, I don't want to go to jail. Well, that's kind of not an option.
Right.
You kind
And
of have to go. You're under
once that's
arrest.
realized and it's a futile
Effort.
issue, right?
Like, okay,
Effort. Yeah. Then
all right,
things change, but you
all
can
right,
have the
let's-
mindset to be able to change with that.
right.
you know?
Yeah. You still don't have to treat them like an ass.
You-
Right? Yeah. I mean,
Well, and the thing is here's the thing, is
make your life
if
easy.
they've come down to your level, why would you amp them up again
Yeah.
anyway, right?
Yeah.
So or you're gonna just make them somebody else's problem,
Right.
which is not ideal.
No.
So,
No.
well, that's just a portion of the mindset course
Yeah.
that
Just
you
a little
offer,
bit on,
right?
yeah.
I mean,
Just a little bit.
it's so much broader, and it's
It is.
actually a
There's-
really good course.
There's a bit more to it.
There's
I
a
mean,
lot
it's-
more to it,
It's a
actually.
couple hour
So,
block
Um,
and it's in and of itself. So
well, if
Right.
you enjoyed this section and you agree with this, you know, I love that. If you don't agree with this, I love that too. You know, we're
Yeah.
open for discussion. I'm always learning. I'm a lifelong learner.
yeah,
So are
you have
you,
to be.
you know, and you can reach us at adb.com, you know, look for us. We're instructors there, and reach out to us. And if you saw something or you hear something that you may not agree with, or you have a different opinion on, or you do agree with it, but for a different reason, love to hear from you on that. You know, we'd love to see you in the nation.
Yep.
Until then, thanks, Tom.
Yep.
Thanks, guys. This was hosted by ADB Nation, and we'll hope to see you soon at the next one.